The heavy wooden doors of courtroom 14 be swung open with a sound like thunder. Every head turned. Every whisper stopped. Something important was about to happen, and everyone in that room could feel it in their bones. Maxine Waters walked through those doors like she owned the place. Not in a mean way, in a strong way, the kind of strong that makes bullies nervous. Her shoes clicked on the marble floor, each step echoing in the silent room. She wore a dark blue suit that made her look like she meant business, and her eyes... Oh, her eyes were sharp, like a hawk searching for lies. Behind her walked two lawyers carrying heavy boxes. The boxes were stuffed with papers, mountains and mountains of papers. These weren't just any papers. These were secrets written down. Secrets that some very powerful people wanted to stay hidden forever. In the front of the courtroom sat a man named Charles Anley. He was rich. Really, really rich. The kind of rich where you own buildings taller than trees and cars that cost more than most people's houses. But today, Charles Anley wasn't smiling. Today, he looked worried. Sweat dripped down his forehead, even though the room was cold. Why? Because Maxine Waters was here to tell everyone what he did wrong. Very, very wrong. You see, Charles Anley took money that didn't belong to him. Not regular money, government money. Money that was supposed to help build schools and fix broken roads and make neighborhoods safe. Instead, he used that money to build fancy hotels and expensive restaurants for rich people. He thought no one would ever find out. But Maxine Waters found out. She spent months, reading boring documents late at night while everyone else was sleeping. She asked questions that made people uncomfortable. She followed the money trail like a detective in a mystery movie. And now, she was here to make sure Charles Anley answered for what he did. But there was one big problem. The judge. Judge Ronald Clean sat high above everyone else in a special chair that looked almost like a throne. He wore a black robe that made him look important. And he had a wooden hammer, called a gavel, that he could bang whenever he wanted everyone to be quiet. Judges are supposed to be fair. They're supposed to listen to both sides and make sure the rules are followed. But Judge Clean, he didn't seem fair at all. From the moment Maxine Waters walked into that courtroom, Judge Clean stared at her with cold, mean eyes. His mouth curved into a nasty little smile, the kind of smile a cat makes right before it pounces on a mouse. Well, Judge Clean said, his voice dripping with fake sweetness. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. The famous Maxine Waters. Tell me, are we going to hear actual facts today, or is this going to be another one of your famous political speeches? The courtroom gasped. You could actually hear people suck in their breath. Lawyers looked at each other with wide eyes. Even Charles Anley seemed surprised. That was incredibly rude. Judges aren't supposed to talk to witnesses like that, especially before they even say anything. But Maxine Waters didn't flinch. She didn't look scared or angry. She simply looked at Judge Clean the way a teacher looks at a student who just said something foolish. Your Honor, she said calmly, I'm here to present evidence. Facts and documents. Nothing more, nothing less. Facts. Judge Clean repeated, like the word tasted bad in his mouth. Right. Let's make this quick, shall we? I have a golf game at 3. More gasps. A golf game? This was a serious hearing about millions of dollars stolen from the American people. And the judge was worried about golf? The lead prosecutor, a serious man named Russell Kern, stood up. Your Honor, Ms. Waters has traveled a long way to be here today. Her testimony is crucial to this case. Perhaps you could let me run MY courtroom. Judge Clean snapped, banging his gavel so hard it made everyone jump. Now, Ms. Waters, please take the stand and let's get this theater performance over with. Theater performance? The insults kept coming, one after another, like punches. Maxine Waters walked to the witness stand, a special chair with a little fence around it where people sit when they answer questions in court. She placed her hand on a Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. She meant every word. Russell Kern approached with a kind smile. Ms. Waters, could you please tell the court about your role in the House Committee on Financial Services? Objection. Judge Clean barked before she could answer. Relevance? We don't need her entire life story. Russell Kern's face turned red. Your Honor, I'm simply establishing her credentials and... Overruled by me because I said so. Judge Clean interrupted. Move along. Faster. This was getting worse by the minute. Judge Clean wasn't just being rude. He was actively trying to stop Maxine Waters from speaking. Why? What was he so afraid of? Maxine Waters cleared her throat and began anyway. In my position on the committee, I review how federal money is spent. Last year, something strange caught my attention. Mr. Anley's construction company received $15 million to build affordable housing for families who don't have much money. Boring. Judge Clean yawned loudly, not even bothering to cover his mouth. Several people in the courtroom looked shocked. One older woman shook her head in disgust. But Maxine Waters continued, her voice steady and strong. The strange part was that the affordable housing was never built. Instead, Mr. Anley built a luxury hotel. When I investigated further, I discovered he requested an additional $5 million that nobody approved. Money that simply disappeared. Now the courtroom was buzzing. People leaned forward in their seats. This was the good stuff. The evidence that could send a rich man to prison. Charles Anley's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, this is speculation and... For once, I agree, Judge Clean said, nodding. Ms. Waters, do you have any actual proof, or are you just making up stories? Making up stories? Maxine Waters reached into one of those heavy boxes her lawyers had carried in. She pulled out a document, an official letter with signatures and dates and stamps. This letter, she said, holding it up for everyone to see, was written by Mr. Anley himself. In it, he asked for $5 million more for a project that was already finished. Or at least, that's what he told the government. He signed it. That's a signature right there. The courtroom exploded with whispers. Russell Kern smiled. Charles Anley looked like he might throw up. But Judge Clean, his face turned red. Really red, like a tomato left too long in the sun. That's enough, he shouted, banging his gavel 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. I think we've heard quite enough from Ms. Waters for one day. Let's take a break. But Your Honor, Russell Kern protested, she's only just begun her testimony. We have 17 more documents to. I said we're taking a break. Judge Clean roared. And that's when Maxine Waters knew something very, very wrong was happening in this courtroom. Something that couldn't be ignored. The break lasted 15 minutes, but it felt like 15 hours. Maxine Waters stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, talking quietly with Russell Kern. Other people walked past them, stealing glances, whispering behind their hands. Did you see how the judge treated her? That was so unfair. Something fishy is going on. Russell Kern looked worried. His tie was crooked now, and he kept running his fingers through his hair. Something people do when they're nervous. Ms. Waters, he said in a low voice, I've been a prosecutor for 20 years. I've never seen a judge behave like this. It's like he's trying to protect Anley. Maxine Waters nodded slowly. She had been thinking the same thing. But why? Why would a judge risk his reputation to protect a man who stole money from regular people? We need to be careful, she said. But we also need to finish what we started. Those documents in those boxes, they tell a story. A story about greed, lies, and broken promises. And that story needs to be heard. When they walked back into the courtroom, the air felt different, heavier, like a storm was coming. Judge Clean was already in his chair, tapping his fingers impatiently on his desk. When he saw Maxine Waters, that nasty smile returned his face. Ah, she's back, he announced to the whole courtroom, like he was the star of a comedy show. I was hoping you might have gotten lost on your way back. No such luck, I suppose. People in the audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't funny. This was cruel. Maxine Waters walked back to the witness stand, her head held high. She wasn't going to let this bully win. Now then, Judge Clean continued. Before we were so rudely interrupted by actual evidence, he said the word evidence like it was a joke, I believe we were discussing your wild theories about Mr. Anley. Please, do continue with your fantasy story. Russell Kern stood up, his face flushed with anger. Your Honor, I must object to your characterization of... Objection denied. Judge Clean snapped. Sit down, Mr. Kern, before I hold you in contempt. Contempt means a judge thinks you're being disrespectful to the court, but the only person being disrespectful was Judge Clean himself. Maxine Waters took a deep breath. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit B. This is a bank statement showing that Mr. Anley's company received the unauthorized $5 million I mentioned. The money went into his account on March 15th. 3 weeks later, construction began on the luxury hotel, not the affordable housing project he was paid to build. She held up the bank statement. The numbers were right there in black and white. You couldn't argue with numbers. Charles Anley's face went from worried to panicked. His lawyer whispered frantically in his ear. But Judge Clean just laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, Ms. Waters, Ms. Waters, Ms. Waters, he said, shaking his head like she was a silly child. You really think we're going to sit here and listen to you read numbers from papers all day? Tell me something. How much money did your campaign receive last year? Should we investigate your bank statements too? The courtroom went dead silent. That question was wrong on so many levels. First of all, it had nothing to do with the case. Nothing at all. This hearing was about Charles Anley stealing government money, not about Maxine Waters' political campaigns. Second, it was a personal attack. Judge Clean was trying to embarrass her, try and make people think SHE had done something wrong. Third, and most importantly, it showed bias. A judge is supposed to be neutral, like a referee in a sports game. But Judge Clean was clearly picking sides, and he wasn't on the side of justice. Russell Kern shot to his feet. Your Honor, that question is completely inappropriate, and I'll decide what's appropriate in my courtroom. Judge Clean roared. But Maxine Waters didn't look scared. If anything, she looked calm, dangerously calm, like she had just figured out the answer to a very difficult puzzle. Your Honor, she said, her voice steady as a rock. My campaign finances are public record. Anyone can look them up anytime they want. They've been reviewed, audited, and approved. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about millions of dollars that were stolen from American taxpayers. We're here to talk about families who were promised homes and got nothing. We're here to talk about justice. The people in the courtroom started clapping. They couldn't help themselves. Someone even shouted, "You tell him." Judge Clean's face turned purple. Order, he screamed, banging his gavel so hard it sounded like a gunshot. I will have order in this court. But something had shifted. The people in that courtroom had been watching quietly, trying to be respectful. But now they saw what was really happening. They saw a judge bullying a witness. They saw a powerful man trying to silence the truth. And they didn't like it one bit. Maxine Waters pulled out another document. Your Honor, I have 16 more pieces of evidence to present. Each one shows a clear pattern of fraud, and... We're done here, Judge Clean interrupted. Excuse me, Russell Kern said. I said we're done. This testimony is going nowhere. It's wasting the court's time. Ms. Waters is clearly biased against Mr. Anley because of her political beliefs, and I won't allow this hearing to become a witch hunt. A witch hunt? Charles Anley had literally stolen money. The proof was right there. Your Honor, Maxine Waters said, standing up now, I respectfully request that you allow me to finish my testimony. The American people deserve. The American people, Judge Clean mocked, are tired of politicians like you pretending to care about them while you grandstand for cameras. This hearing is adjourned. Bang, went the gavel. But Maxine Waters didn't move. She stood there, looking directly at Judge Clean, and said 5 words that changed everything. I request a brief recess. Judge Clean blinked. What? A recess, Your Honor. Just 5 minutes. I need to consult with the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals are like the police of the federal court system. They make sure everyone follows the rules. They protect people, and they handle security. Why did Maxine Waters want to talk to them? Judge Clean's confidence flickered for just a second. The Marshals? What on earth for? That's between me and them. Maxine Waters said firmly. Russell Kern was nodding now, a slow smile spreading across his face. He understood what was happening. Charles Anley's lawyer looked confused. The people in the courtroom leaned forward, trying to hear every word. Request denied. Judge Clean said quickly, too quickly. Now sit down and... Your Honor, Maxine Waters interrupted. And when someone interrupts a judge, it's a big deal. I am invoking my right as a witness and as a member of Congress to report potential judicial misconduct. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Judicial misconduct. That means a judge doing something wrong. Something very wrong. Judge Clean's face went from purple to white. You can't. I can and I am. Maxine Waters turned to the back of the courtroom where 2 U.S. Marshals stood by the doors. Officers, I need to speak with you. Now. The Marshals looked at each other. Then they looked at Judge Clean. Then they walked down the aisle toward Maxine Waters. Their boots echoed on the floor. Thump, thump, thump. Everyone watched. No one breathed. Judge Clean gripped his gavel, so hard his knuckles turned white. This is absurd. You're all witnesses to this woman's attempt to disrupt these proceedings. But the Marshals weren't stopping. They reached the witness stand, and Maxine Waters spoke quietly to them. She showed them something. Papers she had been holding close to her chest this whole time. The Marshals read the papers. Their eyes widened. One of them nodded. The other spoke into a radio clipped to his shoulder. And Judge Ronald Clean realized, too late, that he had made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of his life. The courtroom had never been this quiet before. You could hear people's hearts beating. You could hear the old air conditioning humming above. You could hear every tiny sound as the 2 U.S. Marshals finished reading the papers Maxine Waters had given them. Then one of the Marshals looked up at Judge Clean. Their eyes met, and Judge Clean knew. Your Honor, the first Marshal said his name was Officer Davis, and he had been a Marshal for 15 years. We need to speak with you privately, right now. Judge Clean tried to laugh, but it came out all wrong. Shaky, scared. This is ridiculous. I'm in the middle of presiding over a hearing. Whatever this is about, it can wait until... No, sir, Officer Davis said firmly. It cannot wait. The second Marshal, Officer Chun, moved to the side of the judge's bench. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking. She looked like she meant serious business. Russell Kern stood frozen, his mouth hanging open. Charles Anley looked like he wanted to run away. The people in the courtroom gripped their seats. Something impossible was about to happen. What is this about? Judge Clean demanded, but his voice cracked. He didn't sound powerful anymore. He sounded afraid. Maxine Waters spoke, clearly so everyone could hear. Your Honor, the documents I've given to Marshals show a pattern of judicial bias, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice. Furthermore, there are financial records indicating you received payments from a company owned by Mr. Anley's brother. Payments that were never disclosed. Payments that suggest you are not an impartial judge in this case. The courtroom exploded. People gasped. Someone screamed. Others jumped to their feet. She's lying. Judge Clean shouted, standing up so fast his chair rolled backward and crashed into the wall. This is a setup? This is... Your Honor, Officer Davis said, stepping closer, we need you to step down from the bench. Now. I will not. Sir, you can step down voluntarily or we can assist you. Your choice. The power had completely shifted. Minutes ago, Judge Clean was the most powerful person in that room. He could bang his gavel and make people be quiet. He could send people to jail for contempt. He could control everything. But not anymore. Judge Clean looked around wildly, searching for help. His eyes landed on Charles Anley. Tell them, he shouted. Tell them you don't even know my family. Tell them this is all lies. But Charles Anley said nothing. He just stared at his shoes, his face pale as paper. Because it wasn't lies. It was all true. Judge Clean had been bought, paid off. Someone had given him money to protect Charles Anley, to make this case go away, to make sure the truth never came out. And Maxine Waters had discovered it. Officer Chin spoke into her radio again. We need backup in courtroom 14B. Situation is escalating. Back up. Judge Clean's voice was almost a whisper now. You're arresting me? You can't arrest a judge. I have immunity. I have... Judges are not above the law. Maxine Waters said quietly. No one is. The doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. For more marshals rushed in, their boots thundering on the marble floor. The people in the audience scrambled out of the way, pressing against the walls. This was really happening. Officer Davis climbed the steps to the judge's bench. Judge Ronald Clean, you are being detained for questioning regarding allegations of judicial misconduct, bribery, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The Miranda rights. The same words police say when they arrest someone, being said to a judge. Judge Clean backed away, but there was nowhere to go. Officer Chin was behind him. Officer Davis was in front. 2 more marshals blocked the side exit. This is insane. Judge Clean screamed. I am a federal judge. I've served for 20 years. You can't do this to me. We're not doing this to you, sir. Officer Davis said calmly. You did this to yourself. Then Officer Chin pulled out handcuffs. Real handcuffs. Silver and cold and clicking. No, Judge Clean whispered. No, no, no. But yes. Oh, yes. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. First one, then the other. Judge Clean, who just minutes ago was insulting Maxine Waters, mocking her testimony, trying to destroy her credibility, now stood in handcuffs in his own courtroom. The crowd watched in stunned, absolute silence. Then someone started clapping. 1 person, then 2, then 5, then 20. Soon the entire courtroom was clapping and cheering. People were crying happy tears. An elderly man in the back row stood up and shouted, Justice! Finally justice. Because that's what this was. Real justice. The kind that doesn't care if you're rich or powerful or wearing a judge's robe. The kind that says the rules apply to everyone. The marshals led Judge Clean toward the side door. He was crying now, tears running down his face, his black robe dragging on the floor behind him. As they passed Maxine Waters, Judge Clean stopped. He looked at her with so much anger and hatred that it should have been scary. But Maxine Waters didn't look scared. She looked him straight in the eye and said, You forgot something, Your Honor. In America, we don't let bullies win. Not on my watch. Judge Clean opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. What could he say? He had been caught. Game over. The marshals took him away. The door closed behind them with a soft click. And just like that, Judge Ronald Clean was gone. Russell Kern rushed over to Maxine Waters. How did you know? How did you find out about the payments? Maxine Waters smiled, a tired smile, but a real one. When I was preparing for this testimony, I didn't just investigate Charles Anley. I investigated everyone connected to this case, including the judge. I found bank transfers, shell companies, hidden accounts. Judge Clean got sloppy. He thought he was too important to get caught. You've been carrying that evidence this whole time? The whole time, she confirmed. I was hoping I wouldn't need it. I was hoping Judge Clean would be fair and honest. But when he started attacking me instead of listening to the evidence, I knew he was dirty. Charles Anley's lawyer was packing up his briefcase, moving fast, trying to sneak out. Excuse me, Russell Kern called out. Where do you think you're going? We still have a corruption case to finish. With a new judge, an honest judge. The lawyer froze. Charles Anley looked like he might cry. Officer Davis returned to courtroom. Ms. Waters, we'll need you to come downtown to give a full statement about what happened here today. Of course, she said. But first, can we make sure this hearing gets rescheduled? These people came here for answers. They deserve to get them. Officer Davis nodded. Already being arranged. A new judge will be assigned by tomorrow morning. The people in the courtroom started to leave, but slowly. They kept looking back, like they couldn't believe what they just witnessed. An old woman with gray hair stopped next to Maxine Waters. Thank you, she said simply. My grandson lives in the neighborhood where the affordable housing was supposed to be built. We've been waiting 3 years. Everyone told us to give up, that rich people always win. But you didn't give up. Maxine Waters took the woman's hand. I never give up, not when it matters. More people came forward. A young father with a baby in his arms. A teacher, a construction worker still wearing his hard hat. One by one, they thanked her. Some hugged her. Some just nodded with tears in their eyes. This was why she did it. Not for fame or power or money. For them. For the regular people who get stepped on by the rich and powerful. For the families who just want a fair chance. As Maxine Waters finally left the courtroom, she paused at the door and looked back one last time. The empty judge's bench. The witness stand where she'd been insulted and attacked. The gallery where people had watched justice actually happen. She thought about Judge Clean, probably sitting in a holding cell right now, wondering how it all went so wrong. He had made a simple mistake. He thought being powerful meant he could do whatever he wanted. But Maxine Waters knew a secret that Judge Clean forgot. The law is more powerful than any judge. Truth is more powerful than any lie. And courage is more powerful than any bully. That night, the story spread everywhere. News reporters crowded outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Headlines screamed, "Federal judge arrested." Corruption exposed in courtroom drama. Congresswoman takes down dirty judge. But Maxine Waters didn't stop to talk to reporters. She went home, made herself a cup of tea, and started reading through the next case she was investigating. Because the work never stops. There are always more bullies to stop, more lies to expose, more people who need someone to stand up for them. And Maxine Waters? She was just getting started. What an incredible story. A judge who thought he was untouchable got taken down by truth, evidence, and one brave woman who refused to be bullied. If you love the story of justice and courage, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe for more amazing true stories that will blow your mind. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done in Maxine Waters' shoes? Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next incredible story.